This is an AHM Burlington Northern GP18, and today I'm going to be tearing it down and cleaning it up. So the GP18 is now set up on the track. I'll give the thing some power. That's different. Try going the other way. Okay, there it goes. I did not remember this thing being seized. Apparently it's unseized itself, but that was kind of weird. But as you can see, this thing does run. It's a little bit jittery, and it's got quite a bit of noise. So hopefully, whatever was seizing it up is now gone, and we can just tear into this thing, break it down, give it some fresh oil, and clean it up, and it should be good to go. So as you can see, this model does run, but it needs some work. As you can probably tell, there's some cosmetic issues and defects with this thing, and I think someone did some weird modification to this model at one point. First of which, the handrails on the end of the locomotive are missing. The front ones are there, the rear ones aren't. I don't understand exactly why this is, but this is what I've seen with a lot of these AHM GP18s, which funnily enough, I've got two that have all their handrails that I need to work on in the future, but this is just kind of a common thing. Another really common thing is that the rear clip on the back will break off, which it has on this locomotive. And the third common thing I've noticed is these, I believe, coupler box covers like to break off, but on this model they're completely intact. But something else kind of different is that the screw that typically holds the weight and I believe the fuel tank onto the model is gone. It's just been glued into place. In the shell, there's usually supposed to be screws that hold it on right there. As you can see, they are missing, so you can just pull the shell straight off. And what's kind of weird about this is I took it off and looked a little bit ago. On some of my other models, the threads to hold the screws in are busted on these AHM models. I've still got one I need to work on and see if I can make some interesting replacement for it. But on this one, they're intact, so the screws could still theoretically be slotted straight in, but there's no screws. So now that we got the shell off, I want to deal with cleaning up this dust and stuff before we go in and clean out all the old oil and things like that. So I've got two tools to help. One, I've got a pretty empty can of compressed air, and I have a little paintbrush. So just to start, I'm going to see if I can use this can and blow off some of this dust. And that seemed to do a little bit. It looks like I might be able to pick off some of the stuff on the front up here, but I'll use a paintbrush to see if I can get more of this dust and stuff off of here. So it looks like that's about as much cleaned up as I'll get this thing. Again, it's not entirely perfect. I think I'm going to go through and maybe get like a wet Q-tip or something and see if I can clean this off a little bit more. But I'll come back and just make sure I got this thing as clean as I can. So off camera, I went in and cleaned up both these pieces a little bit more. For the walkway, I tried to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, but there's definitely still some glue residue on there. It looks a lot better now, but it's still not entirely perfect, but we can change that in the future. And the shell, I just cleaned up with some water and some soap, and it's looking a lot better now. It's still a little bit damp, obviously, but I got a lot more of the dust and stuff off of there than I did with the paintbrush or with the compressed air. So now we can get this off to the side and start removing the trucks from the locomotive. So the clips have been removed and both trucks are now separated from the chassis. So I'm going to tear into this one first and we can remove all the gears, components, everything, and then give it all a good cleanup and some fresh oil. Now that I've got all the gears and everything out, I'm going to focus on cleaning up this one part that has the wiper attached to it. That way I can move the chassis out of the way and I can clean up all the parts without this sitting in the way. And what's kind of interesting about this model, which is different between some of my GP18s and whatnot, is on this one, we only have wipers on one side of the locomotive. On my Union Pacific one of the first models I ever had, they were actually on both sides. I haven't seen very many where the wipers are on both sides for these things, but it's kind of an interesting note. So this one's going to have a less electrical pickup than that other thing. All right, and now that that piece is thoroughly cleaned, we can move on to this other pile of parts that came out of the truck. Before I go through and start cleaning up these wheels, I just wanted to point out exactly how dirty these things are. That might be why this engine was stuttering so much, and that's also kind of why it's important to have pickups on both sides of the thing, which is why I like my older one better. So, it's time to just clean up these wheel sets, and then I think we can put this truck back together. Now that the first truck's done, it's time to do the exact same thing to the other truck. So both trucks have been cleaned up and given fresh oil. Now it's time to clean off this commutator, give the motor bearings a little bit of fresh oil, put some more weight in the locomotive, and then I think we'll be all good to go. Before I locate some new screws and throw the shell on, I did want to make a little bit of a modification. I wanted to add weight to the shell. So most of these GP18 shells that I've seen come with like a big lead weight right in the top up here. And since this one doesn't have it, I'm just going to replace it with probably 5, maybe 6 of these quarter-ounce stick-on weights. I believe they're specifically car wheel weights, but I use them a lot in my rolling stock. So I'm just going to try and jam them in the shell of the locomotive like so, and we'll see if I need to put more than 5 in here. And it looks like 5 was the perfect amount. So I'm just very briefly going to toss the shell onto the locomotive, then I'll grab an engine cradle, and we will go to work putting some new screws in this shell. So the engine's now in the cradle, and I'm going to try and throw a pair of 256 screws into the thing. Hopefully those will fit. I believe they should. I tested it just briefly by hand beforehand. And it looks like those screws fit. So now I'm just probably going to make a few small adjustments if I need to, specifically with the weights on the top. Then we'll come back and test this thing out. And now for the moment of truth. I'll give this thing some power and see, hopefully it should run, and hopefully it'll run better. It's a lot better than it was before. It's a little bit jittery in reverse, but I think this model runs significantly better, and it looks a lot nicer. So I think this revival was a success.